Welcome to the Super Facts Show on the Super Facts Network, featuring St. Laz, who also hosts the popular web series Gem Pop and music journalist Mark Walter Ward. They have discussions about hip-hop, culture, society, philosophy, and everything else. Now available on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts. How you doing, everybody? This is Mark Walter Ward, the Super Facts Show. Today we got a very special guest, Henry Abbot from www.truehoop.com. You may have seen him when True Hoop was a part of ESPN. True Hoop's been a blog, just a big part of basketball, one of the best sources of, I would say, honest and in-depth journalism that you'll find over the last damn near 20 years now, huh, brother?
2005 started True Hoop originally.
Well, thank you for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Well, this is just going to be a quick bite. I wanted to talk to you about the Wizards real quick. Do you think Gilbert Arenas was ever a top 5 player, and will he make the Hall of Fame?
I love Gilbert Arenas. I loved having him in the league. I love watching him play, but I think he was mostly what we find is that these high volume scorers who didn't play amazing D, like their teams don't win as much as we want them to, right? I grew up watching Iverson. One of the first teams I covered heavily was Iverson, who's a similar kind of player. And I think it's true of him too. Unfortunately, like we're just kind of learning that, like, you know, the very best, most effective players tend to be a little bigger, a little better defenders. So probably outside the top 5. And I'll tell you on the Hall of Fame question, I'm a little bit worried that, like, you know, that he pissed off David Stern in the wrong way, right? The story became guns or whatever. He didn't play along with the politics just the right way. And I could be conflating that. Maybe it's not as big a deal as it sounds, but once you piss off David Stern a certain way, sometimes you're just kind of done, and like the rest of the basketball establishment just marches along with you. So I'm obviously on play he should be in there, but I have a feeling it might be tough.
Or maybe he'll be like one of those like 8th man on the Celtics team on those championship teams that has to wait like 45 years.
Yeah, exactly. If he'd played for the Celtics, he would definitely be in, though. That would definitely help.
Yeah, for sure. All right, and then, you know, in DC, we definitely loved his replacement, John Wall. I personally didn't like the trade, even at the beginning of the season when it looked like Houston got the better of the deal, you know, and now it's probably not so obvious. I still wish John Wall was a Wizard despite the losing streak. I love Wall, but, you know, how does the overall basketball world perceive his legacy?
I mean, I think he's like, actually, one of my favorite things about John Wall is like a player who guarded him for the first time was like, he's just so big. Like, he's just bigger than you think, right? I mean, he was the fastest player in the league for a few years there. And
definitely.
I lucked into being there. I happened to be there the night that he hit a 3 to beat the Celtics in the playoffs. And it was just like he stood on
the table jump. Yeah.
And I just was like, you know, this is the best of the NBA when there's just the air is just thick with love, right? Like the city was just like, oh, like this is the thing he couldn't do was hit threes, and he beat the rival with it. Like, you know, and I you know, people who live in DC, you know, just like I've listened to them tell me like, you don't understand how much he meant, right? Like, and I believe it. So yeah, that said, he was he was supposed to be like basically Michael Jordan, right? By the time when he was the #1 overall pick, I remember like the video of him on the train down from the city, and like, so I think expectations were like wildly high, right? And here's a little thing people don't know. This is a little secret. Maybe you remember that, like, when Prokhorov was new at the Nets, they made a giant mural, like 220 feet high, I think, overlooking Madison Square Garden, and it was like Prokhorov and Jay-Z standing there looking over the Knicks' home, right? And everybody thought that this was like, you know, the point of it was to, you know, stick it to Knicks fans or whatever. The real story is that they leased out that wall, you know, months before, which is when you have to do that, to make it the John Wall. Like, that was their plan. They were going to win the lottery and get John Wall, and that was going to be painted with John Wall, as we call the John Wall. And but they didn't win the lottery, so they had to come up with something else. They're like, screw it, we'll put Prokhorov and Jay-Z up there. That'll be fine. but he was going to be the king of New York. Like, he was supposed to be like the greatest thing ever. And so I think that
they would have loved him with the, you know, New York's affinity for point guards.
Oh, it was perfect. Yeah, it would have been perfect. No, I think he was, obviously excellent. Still playing amazingly well, but had so many injuries and the team didn't do what everybody hoped, I guess. So, those players get judged harshly outside of the home market,
Yeah, I was born in 1978, so technically I was alive when the Bullets won a championship. But that moment where he jumped on the table and Gilbert Arenas over Kurt Heinrich in the playoffs is like really the only two shining moments of my Wizards fandom.
There's nothing else.
I mean, Michael Jordan was cool.
Yeah.
His chase down block of Ron Mercer. I was at that game. That's like one of the most memorable things I've ever seen in my life. Period.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of Chris Webber from Mitch Richmond trades.
Yeah. Are you hopeful now? Like, how do you feel about the future now?
Well, that's what that was what I was gonna finish up with you. Yeah. Do you think Westbrook will? How much of an albatross will him and his contract be? Or will it at all? I don't want to be presumptive.
Yeah, no, it's he's been one of the more frustrating NBA players, right? Like he's to the eye, most of his career has been like the best player in the league, and just kind of the team's always a little better when he doesn't shoot quite so much, and
right.
His defense. They drafted him on draft night. The story was that they were like, we're drafting for defense. The idea was he was going to be an all NBA defender, and he hasn't been. He never was, which is kind of too bad. People love him though, right? Like I think he's a real like honest dude, right? I know that like at one point there was a story that the Thunder, let me get this right. I think the story was his Thunder teammates, like he wouldn't join in like their outings on the road, and they were like, oh, I'm like maybe he's gay but he's like, no, he's just married, like he's like really married, right? And I always kind of respected that. I thought that he I bet that if he were on this podcast right now, we would all just love Russell Westbrook, right? But yeah, he makes a ton of money, and he hasn't been on the court when people have just been winning like crazy for a long time. So yeah,
he did have a historic game last night though. 30 points, 20 rebounds, 10 assists, or is it 20 assists and 10 rebounds, right?
Yeah, 20. I thought it was 21 assists. I thought I saw like. Crazy. Yeah, crazy. I mean, he can do stuff.
Him and Magic Johnson, the only ones ever. I remember that part of it.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah. He's a super talent. And not a jerk. So, I guess every team has some contracts they regret, some overpaid guys.
Nothing's ever untradeable these days though. Every contract that they said was gonna be untradeable done got traded since then.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. And I guess that, we did have a story. Tom Haberstroh story for True Hoop published on Friday that really like the reason that the big players didn't move the trade deadline is because teams think that Kawhi Leonard and Bradley Beal might actually become available in the summer. So that could be a way to move. I don't know. Maybe someone wants to take $80 million in contracts from you guys. It could be possible.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the one constant in the NBA is change. And then to finish up on the Wizards, what do you think of the last two the first round picks, Rui and Denny? I'm not gonna butcher their last names. So, I got Hachimura down, but I haven't mastered Denny.
I think it's Avdia. I'm not an expert. So for that kind of a question, I would usually just trust my colleague David Thorpe, who watches like tons of international games and college games, and he knows the players really well, and in many cases like coaches them. Reading between the lines, he's like, we'll see with Rui, right? Like initially he was like really not that excited about him, and now he's warmed up a little. Denny, he's like, he would have probably taken him number one. Like he loves Denny. Like he's, it's super into, just the high level of play in Europe. Denny was very young MVP of that league, and just knows what he's doing on both ends of the floor. And I don't know, the subtleties that David's seeing are hard for me to see, but David's just like, look out, like this guy's gonna be fantastic. So
to like a regular, or let's say a more casual NBA fans, we're gonna maybe when he gets a little more acclimated to the subtleties of playing in the NBA, those qualities will make themselves apparent.
Yeah, or they just result in winning, even when you never quite figure out what happened, right? Like this is very common in the NBA, right? Where there's like somebody plays perfect pick and roll D, 20 possessions in a row. The other team, it seems like they're just missing, but really what's happening is like that hand's a little closer, right? Like,
right.
I think Denny's a guy who, to David's view, he's just making great decision after great decision.
Cool. Well, thank you, brother. Make sure y'all go check out Henry Abbot and www.truehoop.com. Subscribe to his Substack. It's excellent journalism. And thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you.
The Superfacts Network, home of Gen Pop, SDE, and the Superfacts Show, now available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts from. Come check out St. Laz, G from the Shop, and Mark Waldo Ward.